I'm Derek Wheatley, and welcome to episode 60 of the Wheatley podcast, and also welcome to the very first visual podcast on YouTube. We decided to do it because I got a new camera and I got a new microphone. I haven't got any new clothes yet, but I will. That's the next step. You've got to do it like slowly. So obviously, thank you very much to Alan Clabby for last week for coming on to talk about CBD. I had just had a few drops of it there actually. For its benefits like inflammatory properties, it's also helps sleep, anxiety. That's my kind of thing. So I appreciate it. He's C-Lab if you want to go and have a look at his website. Subscribe to YouTube channel, obviously, because now you can watch me mess up instead of just listen to me mess up. And the Live and Joyful is still running. This is a recording on a Saturday, so keep an eye out. I can't tell you exactly when the next one will be. I think that's it. So my lack of skills when it comes to technology, you can see if you're watching that my next guest is here already, and she is a breakup coach, and her name is Cheryl Byrne. How are you, Cheryl?
I'm great. Thanks, Derek. Thanks so much for having me on.
Absolutely, you're welcome. It's very nice to. I was a little bit nervous about this because the camera, and it was one of those things where it was always just obviously if we were just talking on the camera, it was normally just going to be out of visual, so I didn't have to kind of freak out a bit and stuff. But while I was doing all morning, I was telling Cheryl before this, I was trying to sort out the microphone, the new mic, and things like that. And I've had to run the screen away from me, and then like the lighting had to be different. And if I move the whole, you'll see later on. Trust me, it's like the whole thing will start shaking. But I've got to say, it's been a week of changes. The new mic. I'd like to thank my mom for that, and I've got new glasses on, and my dad has helped me out with that. So I have very good parents, and I'm very appreciative of them. That wasn't a word. Anyway, Cheryl, could you give me a short history of your upbringing, please?
Well, first of all, I wish I knew about the CBD because maybe I would have had some of that before this conversation. A short history of my upbringing. So I grew up just outside of Athlone. I have two older sisters and a younger brother. Both my parents worked full time. When I think of my upbringing, I just think of a lot of freedom, playing outdoors, climbing trees, all that kind of carry on. I'm so grateful that there was no social media back in those days of the 80s and 90s. I went to the Bauer Secondary School and I most definitely wasn't very studious. I think I spent most of my time wondering what I was going to wear to the next disco, whether that was Four Roads or Harriers or wherever the happening spot was. But yeah, no, I had a good upbringing.
Um, yeah, I like the short ones because it means someone's had a good upbringing. It's like
Yeah.
look, when someone comes on and wants to talk longer and stuff about it, and it kind of breaks your heart when you hear about someone very young having it tough. So when those kind of longer ones, I do feel sad and bad for them. So the shorter ones are kind of nice and uplifting. So we'll bring it down now a bit. When did you first become aware of mental health?
My first awareness, this question is really difficult. I really struggled with this one. I think my first memory of it is around transition year. I did a project on male suicide. I have no idea why I picked that project. So I kind of feel that maybe it was given to me, but I have that's literally it. And then I think for myself personally, my own dealings or my own awareness of mental health, my own struggles was in college. I had a great college life. I was out partying the whole time, living it up, out every night of the week. I thought it was great, but there was this other side to me that was very sad, a lot of emotion going on, and there a lot of confusion as to why I was feeling that way. Luckily, I have a very supportive family, and my mother brought me to a GP, and the GP recommended a counsellor. So that was really my first introduction to mental health and counselling.
Okay, so the next question leads on because I think people will be very interested in the idea of a breakup coach. I think we've all probably heard the term by now, but I think, um, like me, it's kind of it could be, I suppose, a broad kind of term. Now, I followed you for quite a while now on social media, so I'm kind of getting into kind of the swing of things when it comes to it. But uh, what what is a breakup coach? I know that's another tough question for you.
Yeah, I suppose it's really oftentimes when people come out of a breakup, they're feeling their confidence is on the floor, they feel like a failure. Um their self-worth is down. They're just can be a bit disillusioned with the future. So I work with people to help them raise their confidence and to go out there and get the life that they actually want to live. So it's a lot of feelings of anxiety and just not being sure. They thought their future was going one way with one person, and when that falls apart, sometimes they ultimately fall apart.
Yeah, you know, you hear that kind of expression all the time about somebody, it's like losing a limb almost.
Mm.
And maybe it's even more than that, like, you know, but um, I'm kind of interested in like why you decided then to become a breakup coach.
Yeah, so I broke up with somebody a few years ago, and like that, my whole world fell apart. I felt like a failure. I not only lost the person, I also had to move out of our beautiful home, and I also had to grieve the future. I thought I was going to marry this person, thought I was going to have kids with him, and when that was all gone, I suppose that was my identity. I had so much tied up in that one person, my identity was gone. I didn't have a clue who I was anymore, really.
Before we get into kind of the structure that I've somehow pulled together, I said to Cheryl before this recording, this is the hardest episode I've ever had to write. And I don't think I've said that line yet, you know, like in any other one. So
I'm
it,
so
but
difficult.
yeah, but it's like it should be an honor. It's like it's a good thing that I've tested down the line. But before we kind of get into what I want to talk about, I suppose, but like you know, with your kind of with you being a breakup coach, do you think that will put pressure on your relationship, or relationships in the future, on how you look at things now after the events of maybe what you've been through or what others have been through?
Yeah, like it's massively positive because I've learned so much. I suppose I got into it because when I went through my breakup, I couldn't find one place, one resource where I could go to actually help me with that. I was kind of dipping in. I was going to therapy. I also was dipping into personal development. I was looking around the place for so much. So I've tried to tie it all together. So really, yeah, I've created so much knowledge and awareness in myself for going into a relationship. Yeah, it probably will affect relationships. Of course, I will be
Mm.
judging the whole time, even though we're not supposed to judge. But I think it can only benefit me.
Mm. Do you kind of, or do you tend to, or will you swoop in when it happens to maybe I don't say it, I don't want it to happen, but if you friends, you know that it happens down the line, do you think you'd be a little bit of added pressure on you then to kind of almost perform, you know, the stuff that you've learned along the way?
No,
Okay.
absolutely not. I think through my coaching certification, we're told pretty much it's advisable not to coach your friends,
Yeah.
friends or family, because you know too much already. Obviously, I'd want to be there to be empathetic,
Mm.
but the big thing about coaching is asking, like, we believe that the person, the client, has all the answers within them. So it's really about asking the right questions to the person to let them discover what they needed to learn from the relationship and what they needed to learn from the breakup.
Mm.
I'd obviously like to say that I'll support the person, but we all go through things in our own way, and I wouldn't like to impose myself on somebody else and pretend that I know exactly what went on in somebody's relationship, because nobody knows what goes on behind closed doors.
Yeah, that's true. So let's get into what I've got written out here, and we'll see how good or bad of a job I did on it. You can only you can judge, Cheryl. So that's I'm just going to leave that out there. So, what are the usual things you hear from someone who has been broken up with?
broken up with Broken up with is generally lack of confidence,
Mm,
lack of self-worth, a lot of blame. And they hold on to a lot of blame for themselves, generally things like not seeing the red flags, for staying too long, also for their behavior within the relationship, particularly if they were with somebody with narcissistic tendencies, or that used to somebody that used to gaslight them. And the person will be feeling a lot to blame. They'll be holding on to a lot of shame and guilt. So that's really the biggest thing I see with people that are broken up with. And they
Gas?
also have a lot, sorry,
No, you go on.
they also have a lot of limiting beliefs. They tend to feel like that person was their person, and they might not feel that anybody they can meet anybody else.
The gaslighting is kind of a thing that's become I'm not going to say it's become more prevalent. I'm sure it's been there all the time.
Mm.
But I suppose the exposure of gaslighting has become more prevalent. How how big of an issue is that when what you found out speaking to people?
I think it's massive. I think it's so easy for people to turn around, and if they're not good at communicating, if somebody in a relationship isn't good at communicating, they might want to voice their opinion on something. So it is very easy for somebody to turn around and blame the other person for it. So I think that goes on quite a lot. It's not to say that the person who's doing the gaslighting is a bad person. It's just that they're not able to handle the situation themselves. They might not be fully honest with them themselves. They might know deep down that they want to get out of the relationship, but the easiest way to do it is for them to turn around and tell the person that they're with that they're crazy, that they're
Mm.
delusional, in the hope, someplace subconsciously, that that person might break up with them.
Yeah, it's there's a film from like 19, I might get this wrong, but it's around 1945, roughly around that mark, called Gaslight. I'm pretty sure it's a Hitchcock film, but it is about the whole thing about gaslighting somebody. It was the first my exposure that I had to what it was, and I suppose what I'm talking about it becoming more prevalent. I've seen it in programs now or other films where it seems to be a lot more where people are kind of talking about it, and it's just kind of interesting that until now it's obviously been done, but it's becoming more and more of a talked about subject, which is obviously only a good thing for everyone. So this is kind of, I guess, ties in what you were saying about tying in therapy with what you talk about. um there's a big thing, what I learned in my therapy along the way, and to do with confidence and self-worth, because um, like you were talking about with your own mental health, the thing about like depression, we'll say, is and anxiety too. It's so crushing on your confidence and self-worth. Um, and I suppose the two tie together quite well. You know, they seem to work as a pair a lot of the time. How do you go about like even trying to, you know, get someone's confidence and self-worth off the ground even?
One of the first things that I'd generally work with people on is forgiveness, the area around forgiving themselves, because that massively holds people back. Then, really, the next thing about building their confidence is working on their core values and strengths. So, when we're not living in accordance with our values, we're out of alignment, we're making decisions from the wrong place. And I see this with people if they don't know their values, or particularly if they're in a relationship that they're so badly trying to make the relationship work, they can be trying to overcompensate with the partner, or they could have the disease to please, that they're constantly doing what the partner wants to do. So they actually lose sight of what they find enjoyable in life. And so working on somebody with their values is about helping them find joy again in their life. And it's so hard for people to find joy in those times of depression and anxiety. But it's not about going, okay, you can massively go out there and be 100% happy. It's just about moving up the scale one little bit every day to try and make yourself that little bit more happier. And gradually, all those things will build up into bigger things.
Would you agree that I think people tend to want to go from there, and I'm holding my hand up for people watching, but you know what I mean? Like that kind of idea of jumping from zero to 80 or 90,
Yeah.
um, when it's impossible to do it. It's not, it can't be done.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of this toxic positivity out there, that it's like, just be positive, be grateful, you have this, you have a roof over your head, just be grateful. And people think that they're the right things to say to somebody if they're going through these things, and they're so not. They can be so damaging and they can be so crushing. Because I know myself, when I was told any of those things, I just felt that there was more wrong with me because I wasn't able to be grateful.
Yeah.
People telling you that you should be grateful because somebody has it worse than you, when you're feeling so low at that point, you start to feel guilty yourself then, because obviously I'm feeling something I shouldn't be feeling. And so I always tell people to like feel what they need to feel, like all your feelings are valid. When you're going through any healing process, you have to be able to process the bad as well as the good.
That's a one that I've spoken about before on this podcast, probably a few times actually. And I wouldn't get tired of saying it, but it's that idea that my mom kind of expelled from my mind. And it kind of comes back now and then, so maybe you didn't expel it, but suspended it from my mind, we'll say. But the idea of, feeling being told like, well, you've got it all right, like somebody bought you new glasses, this person hasn't been able to get any, I'm just using that as an example. But it's that idea where it's like guilt is a good way of really putting it. I don't think I've ever put it that way on it, but like that idea of that is a kind of a guilt thing for someone, because immediately
Yeah,
they're going to start being like, oh yeah, like what am I whinging about? Like, what am I crying
yeah,
about? This idea of yeah, just it's not a good way to tell people to get, like, it's like saying like cheer up, like, cop on or get on with
yeah,
things. It's not very constructive, I suppose, in its wording. Um, there's another thing that kind of uh, this is probably happened to me, so I'm gonna put it out there. It's fine. It's not a big problem. But that idea of items around the house, or items that you had from, like a birthday that you were given or something like that. You see it on TV and you see it on films, and people throwing it in bins and burning it, and doing all these like burying it out the back garden and stuff like that. What is that like? What's that about, for a start? And would you advise any kind of destructive behavior like that?
well, I don't know if it needs to be as disruptive as
Mm,
that. Like maybe some people need to do it. What I would think that some of the things around the house might be massively triggering for somebody. So if somebody sees their ex's sweater or a gift they got them, if that's triggering you and you're seeing it and you're automatically going into pain, you're thinking pain, you miss the person. So our thoughts create our feelings and our feelings create our reality. So with that, if we're constantly seeing something around the house that's going to trigger us into pain, we're just attracting more pain into our lives. So I would tell people, if they can, to remove visible reminders. That doesn't mean dump it. That just means put it in a cupboard, put it in a shoebox, whatever it is, if it's going to trigger you, and pop that away. And at some point, you'll be able to go through that and look at it and bin whatever you want, or
mm.
else you might want to actually keep some of the things that you want.
I burned a teddy bear when I was 20. Yeah. Like, I was thinking about this morning. So should I mention this? But why not? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, but it's one of those things when you're drunk, right? And I was heartbroken. Like, this is my first
Yeah.
relationship, my first serious relationship, and I was devastated. And we were like, me and my mate Jer were drunk, and I popped into my head that I had like a little teddy bear. It was like the day after I was, we broke up, and there was an empty fireplace that was never used, and we just thought it'd be funny to do it. Like, but it was just so, it was kind of immature, and like you said, it's yeah. I don't think I needed to do it. It would have been interesting to keep it and see. Like, do you think like when you talk about putting it in the attic, we'll say, for instance, and taking it out 3 or 4 years later, that the feelings are, maybe not the feelings, but the raw feelings are kind of gone from it then, and then you can decide what you want to do with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I've done that, put things away. Some things I binned, I wasn't emotionally attached to. Other things I was kind of like, oh no, I'm not ready to look at this. And other things I took back out, like my Chanel sunglasses. I'm like, I'm not dumping those. I'm like, you know. So there's things that I don't have an emotional attachment, but it's funny how I picked some of the things I
Yeah.
didn't want to emotionally attach myself to.
I think if it was a pair of nice sunglasses, I might not have burned them. I might have hung
Yeah.
on to them. The teddy bear, less so.
Did it
I
make you feel better though at
no,
the time?
no, no,
No.
no. It's one of those things where we were laughing, we thought it was funny, but it's like the next day you're like, what was the point in that? There was no kind of release from it. It
Yeah.
was probably too early. One of those things. The day
Yeah.
after. But yeah, so like there's another kind of element to it, and I wanted to know what you thought. If somebody had been broken up with and kind of left, kind of abandoned, or if you want to put it that way, but just left to their own devices, and think it's a couple of years down the line, and that person is still, I guess, kind of angry about it, or upset about it. Do you think that they need to forgive the other person? Do you think that's important?
Yeah, I think it's massively important because it's like that. And I think I had a post a few weeks ago on my Instagram. It's from Buddha. It's to be angry at somebody else is like drinking your own poison. So holding on to that anger and resentment, you're just going to be at it acting out of a lower vibration. So you're never going to bring anything great into your life because you're just angry. And it doesn't serve you. It really, really doesn't serve you. It is hard to let go of that. But it definitely can be done.
That was kind of, I suppose, my follow up, like staying mad at someone, staying angry at someone. Is it again, starting out from the base like you would with confidence, and are these all their own pillars to kind of build up again?
Yeah, I suppose it's about building it up, but I would think that if somebody is still angry at somebody else, I would suggest that they'd actually journal out a lot. I'm a big fan of journaling,
Mm.
to actually write out what it is they're angry with, because so often we've so much going on in our head and we think we're angry at certain things. But actually, when you get it out on paper, they mightn't be that big of a deal to you. Um, Also, there is and I can never say it, an ancient Hawaiian forgiveness practice, Ho'oponopono. It's a meditation, and it's really good for cutting energetic cords with people.
Oh, okay.
But what I find really interesting about it is a lot of people do this meditation because they're angry at somebody else. But when they're doing it, they actually find out that the person they're most angry with is themselves.
Interesting. I may have to get the spelling of that off you, and see if I can put it on that thing. I've noticed. I've looked
I
at
don't know
myself.
if I said it properly.
Well, look, it's as close as I'm not good. I'm just looking at how dark I am compared to you. You have got proper lighting there. I look like the people listening to Spotify obviously won't know anything about this. I look like a ghoul now or something. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to read out the advert, Cheryl, so you can just relax there for a few seconds. All right. Fusion Training Center, Monkland Athlone, a place to train in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, kickboxing, martial arts, and CrossFit. A great atmosphere with experienced coaches, and a real sense of community. If you want to join the team, find us on Facebook at Fusion Training Center or drop in for a chat. Fusion Training Center, train like a warrior. Close enough. You can't, you
Every
can't,
time
you
you
can't.
say that,
What?
since you said that, oh, you sound like saying as if you're saying a warrior. I keep hearing you say warrior.
Oh, I say it every time I say it. I hear warrior, and I just picture my mom going, "I told them." Um, but yeah, it's amazing that I still have to read that ad out because that's 60 times now, and I still don't know it off by heart, and I still mess it up. But we'll go into like kind of the next uh, part of the interview where I talk a bit about, I guess, the one who does the breaking up and the difficulties of that, because we often see them as kind of the villain, a lot of the time, and it's not always the case. Um, how do you, if you are the one who does the breaking up, how does one go about dealing with possible guilt?
It's pretty much the
Mm,
same steps. You're still looking at forgiving yourself, but I'd actually commend those people as well because they're the ones stepping up and actually going, I'm worth better. I actually want to be in a decent relationship. So they're actually holding on to this guilt, but that doesn't serve them at all because they're actually doing the right thing in that the other person might feel pain at the time, but ultimately they can go and find, both people can go and find better relationships.
mm.
Definitely mightn't see it at the time, but you know, but it is definitely the same type of forgiveness practices. And a lot of people, it's not only guilt that they feel, there's also a lot of, oh crap, have I done the right thing? Because our
Yeah.
ego is always going to take us back to protect us. And they don't know the ego doesn't know what's going to happen in the future. So sometimes the safety net is to go back to the ex. So they have to be very strong in themselves that they've actually made a decision and they stick with that decision.
Yeah, that there is the old story of the person breaking up with their partner and then seeing their partner with somebody else, and then all of a sudden it's like their partner is the only person in the world for them.
Yeah,
It's have you? I'm sure you've experienced that many times. Not you personally. I mean, just
I
like
probably have personally as well.
okay.
um, but yeah, no, people do be heartbroken over things like that. But ultimately, you never know what's going on. Like you can turn around. It's so easy to come out of a relationship, rebound with somebody else. It doesn't. It doesn't mean that that person has moved on and is completely happy.
Yeah.
If you come out of a breakup and you're feeling completely like your self-worth is gone, your confidence is gone, whether you dumped somebody or did the dumping, you're going to attract somebody into your life at that same vibration. So really, what I'd say to anyone that gets into a relationship so quickly after another one is, do you really want to attract somebody in at that vibration that hasn't fully healed themselves?
Yeah, there's this question might be a bit more about about yourself, I suppose, or maybe it's something that you've covered a lot. I don't know. This is kind of a one that's a kind of middle ground, and I wasn't sure if it was something that you'd be learning. But there's always the difficulty of being a couple for a number of maybe a number of years, we'll say. The breakup happens, and then the mutual friends thing becomes or the friends that you both have together.
Mhm.
That becomes the problem, and it becomes almost like a battleground that and it becomes awkward and difficult for the friends as well, doesn't it?
Yep.
It's like just when you think like a couple break up, it's like the atomic bomb going off. Do you know?
Yeah. And particularly with people with kids as well, it's really
Yeah.
difficult. I haven't personally experienced that, but I think it is definitely a time when people figure out who their true friends are. And I don't even just mean that around the mutual friends thing. But it's kind of one of those dynamics that you do kind of see sometimes, the males siding with the males and the women
Yeah.
siding with the women. But it does make it really difficult for those people that actually used to go out in a lot of couples. But I suppose more recently, now that lockdown has happened, I
Mm.
haven't actually had many people dealing with that.
What has been the actual main thing you've been dealing with since the lockdown began?
Um, See, I'm only very new to this as
Yeah.
well. I suppose I only created the business like in lockdown.
Okay.
Um, so I suppose it's the norm to me, but it's definitely very difficult. It's
Mm.
difficult for people because they're not able to go out and have see their friends. They're not able to do the usual things that they might find a bit of joy in. So it's definitely much harder right now. But it is, I try and tell people to use this as an opportunity to focus on themselves. As irritating as that is, it is a good time to focus on yourself.
It is. I suppose it's great for people who maybe it's not so much can do it, but are comfortable with doing it. Do you find that there is a lot of people who just are very uncomfortable with focusing on themselves, even giving themselves that little bit of time where they're on their own to think they don't like being on their own, they don't like their own company?
Yeah, massively. There's so many people like that. I would have been one of those people. To be by yourself and actually sit with your emotions
Mm.
is really, really difficult. It's not nice. Um, but I'd still always encourage people to still try and do it. Like, I mean, ultimately you do the work on yourself and it does pay off in the long run.
Yeah, I agree. I think I know when it comes to mental health that it's so important for me to talk to people, to loved ones, and when I was going to therapy, I'm not at the moment, but it's that kind of idea of being open, and it's hard to do it, if you're not used to it. But once you start to do it, and in a constant kind of way, and even with just with the same person, you'll find you're so kind of get really good at it. It's just the practice of learning how to talk about yourself, revealing kind of your dark sides or your sad sides or whatever it might be. I just think that I've always had that kind of thing in me where I've been happy enough to be on my own. I'm okay with that. I can sit with it, and I'm fine. Where I understand from friends of mine that it's a kind of a struggle, and they prefer to be with groups, and as if they want the noise to drown out anything that might be going on in their
Yeah.
minds.
But I think that's exactly it. It is something to drown out things rather than
Mm.
actually it been. I used to think I was an extrovert. And through all of this now, I realize I'm actually an introvert. For me, being out there trying to drown out the noise, that's exactly what I was doing. I was trying to drown things out.
That's why you're
Whereas now I'm really comfortable being on my own.
that's why you're in the nightclub all the time and out
Yeah.
drinking all the time. Yeah,
Out.
good, good.
Oh, I can't wait to go partying again. Don't worry. That hasn't changed in me.
Yeah, look, I know you're not the only one, especially with Patrick's Day having passed and that. But yeah, I suppose I'm not in that kind of bubble, but that kind of leads nicely into my next question. The struggles you mentioned social media earlier, but the struggles of constant reminders of people on social media, or even out in the street or in the pubs when things are normal. Um, that's got to be quite like I haven't really had that. you know, where I've had to be constantly reminded of my ex, because we're talking 15, 16 years ago when I'm talking about the girl I was talking about. The social media thing wasn't a part of it. And I think I would have struggled, and I probably would have got obsessive about
Yeah.
checking, you know. How tough is that for people?
People
Mm,
get very obsessed with it. What I'd say to people is to either come off social media or unfollow your ex. You don't need that
mm,
contact at all, or you don't need that reminder, because it's not serving you at all. I came off social media because I was on it for a long time after my breakup, but everything, it was so, like, I looked like I was living the life. Like, my
mm,
sisters both live abroad. One's in Chicago, one's in Dubai. I used to go to Ibiza a lot. So my Instagram feed was looking like I was living a great life. So I know firsthand that that's not true. Like, I was completely, anyone that looked
mm.
closely at a picture could see that I wasn't happy. So I know firsthand that what you see in a picture is not telling the truth. So I would always encourage people, if you're not able to be on social media, don't be on social media. And it's not even just about the ex, that person. Sometimes people get triggered when they see a lovely couple doing something
Mm.
together. People are always just putting their best life on the social media. They're not putting the arguments there. You don't know, again, what's going on behind closed doors. So I think if you aren't in a good um headspace, don't be on social media.
Yeah, I think that got like pretty much goes for everything, doesn't it? Like
Yeah.
if you're like, it's not it's a weird place, social media. I'm lucky that I've met some nice people. I've got to interview nice people like yourself
Yeah.
and all the other people down, you know, who I've gone and talked to, and I would never have come across without it. But I know I'm in a place where I'm feeling all right, and I know what I'm kind of looking for, especially when it comes to the podcast, who I'd like to talk to. But yeah, if you're there's that thing where I guess people want to be, you know, even like I was saying about someone that's done the breaking up, they want to keep checking on their ex, and it's a kind of thing you get into a loop with, and you don't realize you're in it, and you're kind of it's not a good place to be. I'm not talking about myself, by the way. That's what I was thinking. Everybody's going to think these questions are all about me, but they're not. Honestly, this is not a therapy session. This isn't. I'll tell you what, this is not. This is not a free therapy session that I've worked out just to get you on the podcast. Um, so what about then? What about the idea of mutual breakups? Because we hear it a lot. Um, we hear people, you know, if you ask them, they'll say, "Oh, it's a mutual thing." What are your thoughts on mutual breakups?
I don't really believe, but that's probably because I haven't experienced it, or I haven't had anyone come to me that said to me that it's either been a case that they've been broken up with, they're heartbroken, or else the people that have guilt, or they're trying to think, should they go back to their ex? I have never heard of a mutual. I think somebody always ultimately gets hurt. Somebody wants to hold on for longer. Even if deep down, it's not the right thing, I don't think at that moment in time that two people could just decide to separate at the same time.
Yeah, it seems just a little bit too cozy. It's a nice idea, you know, the fact that everybody walked away feeling happy and knew that it was a good relationship, but you know, it didn't work for whatever reason. So be it. But it just seems a little bit too, you know, wrapping it up in a nice bow. But like that's to say that's just my experience, as I haven't been in that situation. So I'm just saying it sounds a bit implausible. But
We
I
might get
hope
major backlash. Sorry.
yeah, I was just about to say, someone's sitting back at home now going,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? We
We'll say, can we bring the other person on as well?
bring,
Can
br-
both of you say
bring them both on, bring everybody on. We'll do a full panel. I don't mind.
it?
But so, besides that, then, besides the breakup coaching side of things, I know you're a big believer in manifesting. Is that right?
Hmm. Yeah.
What is it about that you find attractive?
I just think it's all fascinating. I got into the whole learning more about the universe and universal laws, I suppose, when I was at a time that didn't have much hope in my life. And I suppose it really, just listening to my inner guidance and leading me forward, kept nudging me in the right direction, has led me to greater things. So manifesting is about consciously creating our lives. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend I have all my life together and I have everything I want, but I'm working on it.
Mm,
And so it's a work in progress. But really, the universal laws are all about us using our mind as a tool to help us get what we want out of life.
mm. I suppose the biggest seller, maybe, or the biggest example of it would be the Secret.
Yeah.
It seems to be one of the I'm gonna just say it because I've had a go at The Secret on this podcast before. I didn't know, to be honest. I haven't read The Secret. That's the worst part. So I don't. How dare I, have a go at it? But I have an idea what it's about, right? And I guess I drew a line with I drew a line from The Secret to Conor McGregor. So I had, know a bit about MMA and that. Um, and Conor McGregor read The Secret, and look at Conor McGregor now. He's a multimillionaire and all this stuff. Okay, but I suppose what I maybe have a little bit of an issue with it is the idea that if we all, so this is just a fantasy thing in my head. So if we all decided that we were going to follow it, and we all wanted to have £1 million, euro, whatever, we're not all going to be able to do that. So what happens to the people who can't get there? Are they seen as like I'm making it sound like a cult? I know it's not, but are they seen as like a failure, or are they poor at manifesting? I just don't get that side of things, I guess.
Okay.
You're not here to look. I'm not.
I know.
You're not here to defend The Secret. You know what I mean? But
Okay.
that's
Oh,
just my thought.
can I say one thing on The Secret though?
You can say
I think The
many.
Secret is very much, it is, I did, you can watch the documentary,
Mm,
save yourself some time rather than reading the book. The Secret goes on about the law of attraction. And it basically, the law of attraction is like attracts like. Um, so it is very much based on, if I visualize attracting in something you visualize, if I sit here and visualize a check for $1 million euros arriving through the post, it'll just arrive. There's so many laws, and there's a whole framework of laws. There's about 12 immutable laws. And in there is the law of action. You have to get up off your ass and go and buy a lottery ticket or create the business. €1,000 isn't just going to arrive on your doorstep. So I think a lot of people thought from The Secret that they could just visualize their dream life and get it, but you have to go and you have to do the other things as well.
yeah, it's the whole side of it. If you take Conor McGregor, for example, the amount of work that guy has to do in the gym, and constantly training and learning and all those things. I do get that, but I suppose it's the idea that people like me haven't read it and we're having a go. But I'm known to have a go at many. I haven't read the Bible. I've had a go at that. It's all out there for us.
Yeah,
I will not read The Secret, but I wanted. That's why I wanted to ask you about the
yeah,
manifesting and why it affects your life.
yeah. The reason why people, it's a case of you're coming from a lack mindset or an abundant mindset. Do you know for truth that we can't all have €1 million?
No.
And also it comes down to not everyone wants the €1 million.
Yeah.
So all of us have desires. So you wanted to create this podcast. Not everyone wants to create a podcast. It's all about the universe is abundant and we can all have what our heart desires, but we have to go out there and get it. We have to smash through all the limiting beliefs and fears and go out there and get
I've been converted. I think I'm part of it. No. But it's funny. It's like when I listen to you explain it to me like this, it makes sense. But somebody else could explain The Secret to me in a completely different way. Like, I suppose it's like anything, but it's the idea of what I've had in my head, maybe, of the idea
it.
of what The Secret is. It's like everybody can't achieve the everything that they want to achieve. And you understand then when you break it down and you say there's 12 steps to it, that it makes more sense, And it's just when I have someone on that, I just remembered halfway through this interview that you mentioned about manifesting on your page, and I thought I'd ask just to see what your thoughts were on it. So thanks very much for. I was kind of as a cheap shot on the old Secret thing as well, like because that's just one book. That's just
It's one book.
yeah.
It is a really good book, but it does leave out a lot of things. I
Mm,
think the biggest thing for me in those universal laws is the law of correspondence. So what's going on in our external world is a direct reflection of our inner world. So if we have complete chaos going on internally, and if we're completely living in anxiety and living in fear, that's going to be playing out for us externally.
Do you think that do you bring this to the coaching side of things?
Yeah.
Okay. Um do you, is it again the idea of slow step by step to the recovery, rather than, like, what you're talking about with, changing your life. uh this is obviously changing your life when it comes to a breakup, but it has to start at that point rather than a life point of thing, like, a grander scale kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like for me, that was the first thing that I learned, that our outer world is a direct reflection of our inner world. So then it made sense to me that, oh my God, this is why my life is the way it is, and it's crap and I hate everything about it. And so when I started to put the focus into me and doing the work on me, things gradually started shifting and started improving in my life. I started attracting better things into my life.
Mm, yeah. It's definitely something I have to work on with the old, outer, the outer world. Just because I suppose, I guess it's that kind of the old thing of allowing silly little things to bother you, um, and then you kind of, when you step away from it and you start thinking about you realize, like, you've overcome these massive things, but you're allowing, like, somebody who cut you off, like, down the road, um to wreck your day. Like, your whole day is gone because of just some little thing. And that's, it's, when you're away from it and it hasn't happened, you can kind of say, oh, that's silly. Why would I do that? But then you immediately go back to it and you do the same reaction. So it's kind of working each day at trying to change your reaction to one little thing that might take a long time.
But do you think that if you were going out and you were um, somebody cut you off and you were actually in really good form yourself, that that would have actually bothered you? Do you not think there's something deeper within you that's ready to get, triggered straight that quickly?
I think I hate cars. I think I've got I do. I don't like, you won't know this about me, but I don't like travel. In, like, when I say travel, I mean in things, like cars. Because I'm very anxious about, like, trains, cars. It could be to do with control. It could be to do with the fact that I don't drive, and I don't drive a train. But, like, when I'm on a bike, I'm in control of it then. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like, people can cut me off and all that. I understand that, but I'm not anxious on a bike.
yeah,
Um, so it could have something to do with the old thing of me just being angry at motorists, possibly in a weird way because I know that they can do it and I can't. You know what I mean? This is getting really deep now. This is, but yeah, it's something maybe I need to maybe think about a bit more and come to uh come to a decision what it is. But it's just, yeah, I guess when I'm in a good mood though, like, it's not going to affect me as much. I might, like, let it curse out or something, and then on I go when I'm back into the day. But yeah, it's just something bigger than somebody cutting me off with their
yeah,
car. um,
yeah.
so what else then, Cheryl, do you like to do in your spare time?
In lockdown, geez, that's a hard question.
I know, but have you have
in
you
nor
have you found
in
anything in
nor
lockdown?
Have I done anything in
Like, no,
lockdown?
have you found anything new that you like to do?
Um, God, not really. I've done a lot of courses. I feel like
Mm,
I've really done a lot of courses. A lot, because I'm still in working in my 9 to 5. A lot of my time has been spent on my business. Um, so I did a few courses. I did UPW last year, Tony Robbins.
mm,
Don't know if you know him.
I do, yeah.
It was a 4-day event. Just when you mentioned Conor McGregor, he's big into him as well. But no, I've been trying to, keep myself sane by, meditating, just trying to connect with my friends as much as possible. But I definitely have been more on the boring side. But I enjoy putting my time into my business.
I saw a documentary about Tony Robbins on maybe Netflix. I'm not too
I'm
sure.
not your guru.
Yeah, is it that one? I think it was. They love Tony Robbins, don't they? People.
I love Tony. Yeah,
What is
yeah.
the attraction to Tony Robbins?
Oh, he's just amazing. He's just somebody that has gone out there and visualized this amazing business and gone out there and got it. And he actually helps so many people as well. It's not just about this egotistical man. I know a lot of people think he's have controversial views on him, but he actually helps so many people as well.
I don't I don't think a man in that position can help being slightly egotistical with the mass adoration that he gets, from audience. This is not me having a go
Yeah.
at Tony Robbins, but I don't know enough about him, to be honest, to have a go, even though I had to go with The Secret and I don't know enough about that. But no, Tony Robbins, yeah, it's he's adored by his fans, like, and he came across quite well in that documentary, by the way. I thought he was quite good, and he seems like a really nice fella. But yeah, the egotistical side of things, the ego is an interesting kind of thing that I, try to figure out sometimes. With some of my friends, we do jujitsu, so we do a bit of rolling around the ground and trying to choke each other, and it's a ego has to go out the door. Like, you're told this, but at the same time, how do you not have an ego when someone's trying to choke you and you're trying to get them off you and whatever? So yeah, but in my position, like, the ego can be down here, but if Tony Robbins is in a position where, of course, he's going to have a bit of an ego.
Yeah, I'm sure he does, but I actually think the amount of people he's helping,
Mm.
when I look at him, so I think of it as your ego or your true self or your high self. And I think that when he is helping so many people, he is operating out of his higher self.
Do you think it's all right though that he has an ego? Is that how
Yeah,
do
I
you
think
feel?
so. We all have egos. You
Yeah.
never get rid of your ego. Well, although Eckhart Tolle, he says he's gotten rid of his ego. But I
Just
think
who's he?
Eckhart Tolle,
Yeah,
he's a big spiritual leader.
he's got rid of his ego.
Yeah,
Has he?
yeah. Well, this is what he says.
Is he?
Um,
What do you know much about him?
I've read some of his books, but not in a long time.
Is he what age is he roughly?
He's 50s, 60s,
I'm gonna have to
probably.
look him up. That's a big statement to make, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's got to do with when he realized he no longer wanted to be alive. Um,
Mm.
and yeah, I can't remember the exact thing, but it was something like, oh, he made the statement, I can't live with myself. So it was then when he realized that there's actually two elements to it. How can you have a sentence saying I can't live with myself?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, he's very much into like living the quiet life, and um yeah, he's very interesting. Yeah,
I'll,
Oprah
I'll look.
interviews him a lot.
I'll look him up because I don't know him. I bet you, like, I have a friend, Josh, who's been on this podcast a couple of times, and he talks a lot about kind of the stuff that you talk about, actually, kind of, the kind of searching for other things outside of just, our own little boxes, I guess. And yeah, he's always like, Josh for me is kind of a fascinating character. He's very into psychology and things like that. So it's always that idea of I won't go too deep into it, but I'm going to have him on again soon. So I'm looking forward to chatting to him and I get to talk to him about that. But I bet you he knows that guy. I bet he knows it.
Probably
Um,
does. Really famous.
how have I not? I don't know. It doesn't matter. See, that's my ego thinking, like, what? How could I not have heard of him if he's famous?
I don't
But
think the ego is a bad thing, though. I think
yeah,
the ego is there to protect us, and but that's the challenging thing. Like when we need like protection to go across the road, it's our ego telling us to look out. But at the same
mm,
time, the ego is always going to, protect us from, like today. I coming on here, I didn't want to. My ego was like, just
yeah.
cancel it. And I actually just had to be like, no, it's okay, it's fine. So we have to live with it.
I do have that continuous dread of someone canceling at the last minute. I'm like, oh, what am I going to do now? Yeah, I think, it's funny you say about the ego, because it's fascinating about anxiety to me. It's like we couldn't be without anxiety, but because of it, the same goes for crossing the road, or obviously going back to our ancestors where they had to run away from bloody animals and stuff like that. They had to be anxious, but it's just I have too much of it, and I need to, like, calm it.
Why is there a reason you think we can't be without anxiety?
I think we need to be on guard at all times, pretty much. Like, and not just like physically. I think, emotionally and mentally. I think we need to be a little bit alert.
Yeah.
Now that's not saying that everybody has to feel that anxiety in their chest. Like,
Mm.
that's silly. That's over anxiety. But
Yeah.
I do feel it's like that idea of, you're saying about crossing the road. Like, you need to have that little bit
Yeah.
of awareness and alertness just to kind of go, okay, I'm fine, I can go. If that makes sense to
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
No, we do need that. But I definitely like say today I was anxious coming on today, but I definitely suffered before having really bad anxiety.
Mm.
And I got hypnotherapy for it. And it was massively like life transforming to actually have that experience and not experience the anxiety 24/7.
I've got to give a shout out to my friend Tracy now, because you mentioned it, right? Hypnotherapy. She was on here ages ago, back in the early episodes, and she offered me to come over and do over to her office. I mentioned it. Maybe I don't know if you've heard the
I
episode.
don't think I listened to that episode. I definitely would have remembered if I
She's
listened. I'll go
she's
back.
oh, she's so good. And then I came back, and like, it was just that moment that shocked me when she asked me how long did I think I'd been under, and I said 10 minutes, and it was like 45 or 50. So obviously for those, 35, 40 minutes, I was completely anxiety free, and that the idea of that is just lovely. I went away from it feeling really good and really happy, because I thought to myself, well, at least for that little bit, you were just chilled out, like, and that's,
Yeah.
I mean, that's some, if someone can do that for you, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's rapid transformational therapy. It's
Mm,
RTT is what it's called. But it definitely was. It's just you reminded me there when you were saying about the ego, and literally when the therapist was saying to me, "Okay, are you ready for this to leave?" And I was like, "No." Like my subconscious mind was trying to hold on to it because it wanted to protect me.
mm.
Um, and then eventually she kept doing the work, and it went.
Uh, it's funny, when I mentioned Josh, he talks about the chimp paradox a lot,
Yeah,
and the idea of the chimp being the one to tell you to do things and tell you not to do things. And I guess, like, with some of the way you're saying the ego, he'd probably just replace the word
yeah.
chimp, just the way it's used in that particular
I
book.
found
Yeah.
I found it difficult to read that book because I was like, it's just the ego. I don't get what the big deal is.
The chimp, yeah, I think that was the chimp telling you that. But yeah, he loves it. He never shuts up about the chimp. I've told him to stop talking about the chimp, but we'll talk about it maybe in the next time he comes on the podcast. But to be honest, I understand everything he says when he's using that as the kind of way of putting it, like, which is fine. I meant to say, yeah. So, like, if in your spare time when lockdown isn't on, what did you like to do?
I will most definitely be getting on a flight out of here. Um, yeah, both my sisters live abroad, so I love going to visit them. Also, like going any place sunny on holidays. But I will most definitely be going out for food, drinks, everything. I love meeting up with my friends. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if my life will change that much.
Really?
Well, do you know what it is, Cheryl? I've mentioned it a few times in the podcast. I hate repeating stuff, but I understand that there's new people listening all the time, so it may be of interest to someone. And John Ranson talked about it. The idea of this anxious people were waiting for this moment to happen, because we could say we knew this was coming. But it's also, the idea of, I kind of took it in my stride, really, because a huge amount of things didn't change. Now, the gym was taken away, the jiu-jitsu side of things was taken away. That was tough. But everything else, I could still go for a run. I could still read, watch films, all these kind of things that I normally like to do. So I took it in my stride. I had a bit of a bumpy road there a couple of weeks ago. I do have to be aware of shifting moods, kind of keep on top of those things and talk to people about it. But yeah, I understand. Like, when it's all over with, like, I can't wait to go into the gym and just roll around the ground a bit. Like, that's going to be, for me, is going to be good crack and a release. But it's good. Like, we'll all have our own little ways of getting this cloud off, over our
Yeah.
heads and that. But so how much has this have you grown as a person from this training that you've been doing?
Oh, massively. Yeah, I look back to how I was a few years ago, and I just don't think like I used to think that, wellness and self-care was about going and doing something nice for myself, like going to the hairdresser, going to get my nails done. Yeah, I can't wait for them to open up.
Yeah.
Um, and I had no idea how many layers deeper that we have to like to heal, I suppose.
Mm,
because everything goes back to our childhood up until we're 7 years old. Um, so sorry, I've lost train of the
It's
what was
all
the
right.
question?
I've lost track of most of the questions. You've saved me on half the episode. No, just the how much you've grown through the process of all this training.
Oh yeah, no, I'm a completely different person.
Mm.
Completely, like that's why you lost me, because I'm like, that's such a massive
It's
question.
a big
Like,
question. I like to ask the big questions and
yeah,
fluster people.
yeah, I really got flustered there. I'm not the same person at all. I have just so much self-awareness. I'm not afraid to speak up to myself. I definitely had the disease to please, and I would have been
Mm.
going around trying to make other people happy constantly. Not that I don't like to do that, but I definitely am aware of how I can set my own boundaries, because it's like back to that whole thing of you can only, like, you have to fill from a full cup or whatever. You can't help people if you're not feeling good.
Yeah, exactly. And from it's interesting to hear that you do me not knowing about what this was in total. Obviously we knew what a breakup coach was, but the fact that you've drawn in from your own life, from therapy that you went through to bring it into it all, it's quite it's like people might think it's just a relationship or the end of a relationship you're trying to heal yourself from, but it seems to be so much more than that.
Yeah, it really, really is. Like, I'm a big believer, like, in we attract in somebody at the same vibration as us. So ultimately, if you want to go into another relationship that's healthy, you have to heal yourself first.
Yeah.
And there's so many layers to it. There really, really is. Like, I didn't realize the fact of, down to those core beliefs. I'm not worthy. I'm not lovable. I'm not enough. Ultimately, a lot of people are going around with those beliefs,
Mm.
and they're ultimately formed up until you're seven. Your subconscious mind is taking all that information in. And I think if we're operating out of a place with those core beliefs, going into a relationship, if you're still believing those things, it's not healthy. It's never going to be
Mm.
a good relationship.
Yeah. This I've kind of started to ask this of everybody at the end of the show, and with your background in manifestation, I think this is going to be perfect for you. What are your plans for the future?
My plans for the future. Oh God, I've so many. Well, really, really hoping that I can go into my business full time is probably the big thing that I am working on at the moment. Um, I'm doing a course. It's Manifestation Babe Academy. So that's where I'm getting all my manifestation stuff. My voice is going now.
It's all right.
So yeah, no, that's probably my biggest thing. I really want to help more people who are struggling to go through things that I went through.
That's very selfless, and you didn't mention anything like you want to be a millionaire or you want to do this that. It was to help other
Oh yeah,
people. Oh, you
I
want to be
wanted
that?
that. Like, my business is going to be successful.
Yeah.
Um, but that's one of the other laws. One of the other laws is about, if you are, like, ultimately, it's not selfless, because I actually really enjoy doing it. I really get
Mm.
a buzz out of helping other people. I love coming away from a coaching session feeling like that I've helped somebody or lifted them up. Likewise, on social media, if somebody reaches out to me and says, thanks, I really needed that on some post, I love that. So it probably is my ego. But there is a law there that if you are living in your purpose with what you are supposed to be doing, you will be financially rewarded.
Okay. That's fair enough. Yeah. It's. Oh, I won't go into it. We've spoken
Well, you
about it.
have to say it now.
No, it's just that thing. I was gonna like give you a little bit more credit than you were kind of giving yourself, because I understand that you get something from it. I do just and but like I do see it as a selfless things when you go and help people the way that you're doing, and whatever kind of feels like, whether it's breakup coaching, therapy, whatever it might be, hypnotherapy, it's all helping somebody. And it's kind of like I think we're Irish people, I'd say probably more are kind of we're not great at taking kind of, it's not really, it's kind of a compliment, I suppose, but it's that kind of thing. We want to kind of pass it back to the next person. Do you know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
But at the same time, I get what you mean by you're taking something from it and you're enjoying it, and that's good.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. That that it's a two-way street. Then but I would say it's a great selfless act when people do this kind of things for others. To get them through the day or the year, or whatever it might be.
I had this one amazing therapist, and I remember going to her, and what she had said to me was, in the first session, she said, "We'll get through this." And it was the first time that somebody had actually said, everybody else had said to me, "You'll be fine, you'll get through it,
Mm.
whatever." And I just remember sitting there being like, "Oh my God, somebody's in this with me," and just having somebody to be there with me. And that's just what I want to do for people.
Yeah. And there's nothing better than making that initial connection with the therapist,
Yeah.
because I've had it once and twice, sorry, really, but the first one I could really how much I took from those sessions, maybe compared to other ones that kind of fell flat, you know. Where can people find you, Cheryl?
My website is thereclaimcoach.com, and I mostly hang out on Instagram at the Reclaim Coach.
There's some good little TikTok videos going on over there. I like them. I like them. They're good. Um, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you, Cheryl. It was really nice, and thank you for giving up your time on a Saturday.
Thank you so much. Really enjoyed chatting to you.
Thank you. And listen, just hang around me for one. I have to, speaking of socials, I gotta take a photo for the social
Gotta get the
media.
images.
You've got to get them up there, you know. But okay, I'll just close it out. So thank you very much to John. After all my talking about this being a visual experience, if this doesn't get put out, I'll just if I made a mess of this or John makes a mess of this when he's putting it up, I'm just gonna be livid. No, I won't. But thank you very much to John as always. My mum and dad, granddad, Ger, and Calvin, all those people as ever. Subscribe to the YouTube channel because now you can watch the faces moving. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Spotify, Apple Anchor, Google Podcasts, and a couple of others. I'm always trying to remember. I think Podbean was, but we got rid of Podbean because they wanted to charge us. I suppose they've got to make their money too. But yeah, thanks very much to everyone for listening as always, and it's been a different experience today. Really enjoyed it. We will be back next Wednesday, of course. Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you very much, Dirk.
Take care of yourself. Bye, everyone.
Bye.